Admiral Jake Morrison felt the deck shake under his boots as the UES Horizon dropped out of hyperspace. The exploration ship had traveled for 3 months to reach this distant system. Jake walked to the main viewing screen and stared at what waited for them. "My God," whispered Captain Ryan Blake, standing beside him. "What is that thing?" The object floating in space was massive beyond belief. It looked like a moon. But no moon had ever been built like this. Metal plates covered its surface in perfect geometric patterns. Weapon ports dotted its hull like black eyes. Ancient scorch marks showed where terrible battles had been fought long ago. "It's a ship," said Dr. Lisa Carter from her station. She was the team's expert on alien technology. Her fingers moved fast across her computer as she gathered data. The readings show it's hollow inside. This thing was built to carry an army across the stars. Jake walked closer to the screen. He had commanded ships in the Earth Defense Force for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The human race had been exploring space for 50 years. They had found ruins on dead worlds and broken pieces of alien technology floating in space. But this was different. This was complete. "How big is it?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her readings again. "About the size of Earth's moon. The hull is made from materials we don't understand. The power systems are still active after who knows how many years. Sir, this could change everything for humanity." Ryan moved to the communications station. "Should we report this to Earth Command?" Jake thought for a moment. Earth's government would want to study this find. The military would want to claim it. The politicians would want to control it. But first, he needed to understand what they had found. "Not yet," Jake said. "We go aboard first. We see what we're dealing with. Then we make our report." The Horizon moved closer to the alien ship. Jake could see that the hull was not smooth. Towers and spires rose from the surface like a metal city. Launch bays large enough to hold Earth's biggest battleships were cut into the sides. This was not just a ship. It was a mobile world designed for war. "I'm reading atmosphere inside," reported Chief Engineer Danny Cooper from the engine room. "The ship is maintaining life support systems. Gravity is Earth normal. Temperature is good for humans. It's like this thing is waiting for us." Jake felt a chill run down his back. "Waiting for us? That's impossible. This ship has been dead for thousands of years." "The computer systems are active," Lisa said. "I'm getting signals from the ship. It knows we're here. Sir, I think it's trying to communicate with us." The main screen flickered. Strange symbols appeared and disappeared. Then, suddenly, the symbols changed. They became letters that humans could read. "Welcome," the screen said. "Enter and learn." Jake stared at the message. "How does it know our language?" "It's been scanning our ship," Lisa explained. "Learning from our computers. This technology is far beyond anything we have on Earth. This ship could teach us things that would take humanity centuries to discover on our own." Ryan looked worried. "Sir, this could be a trap. We don't know who built this ship or why it was abandoned. Maybe there's a good reason it's floating out here alone." Jake understood Ryan's concern, but he also understood the opportunity. Humanity was not alone in the galaxy. Other races had been traveling between the stars when humans were still learning to make fire. Those races had technology that made human ships look like toys. If humanity was going to survive among the stars, they needed to learn and grow stronger. "We go aboard," Jake decided. "But we go carefully. Lisa, I want you to lead the science team. Danny, you focus on the engineering systems. Ryan, you bring security. We take no chances." The Horizon docked with the alien ship through an airlock that opened for them automatically. Jake led the boarding party through corridors that stretched beyond sight. The walls glowed with a soft light that had been burning for longer than human civilization had existed. They walked for an hour before reaching what looked like a command center. The room was enormous. Control stations were built for beings much larger than humans. But as they approached, the controls changed size to fit human hands. Lisa ran her scanner over a control panel. The ship is adapting to us. It wants us to use it. Sir, I think this ship was left here on purpose. Someone wanted it to be found. Jake touched one of the controls. The room around them came alive. Holographic displays showed star maps with thousands of worlds marked in different colors. Battle formations filled the air with the ghosts of ancient fleets. History played out before their eyes in light and sound. This ship fought in a great war, Lisa said as she studied the displays. The builders were fighting something terrible. They were losing. This ship was part of their last fleet. The displays changed. They showed worlds burning, entire systems going dark. Then they showed this ship, damaged and alone, limping away from a final battle. They lost the war, Ryan said quietly. But they left this ship for someone else to find. Someone who might finish what they started. Jake felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. Humanity had always been the youngest race among the stars. They were ignored by the older civilizations who saw them as primitives playing with dangerous toys. Earth's government begged for scraps of technology and was grateful for the smallest trading rights. But this ship could change all of that. This ship could make humanity strong. We need to learn everything, Jake said. How it works, how it fights, how it travels between stars faster than anything humans have built. We need to understand what they were fighting and whether it's still out there. The ship seemed to respond to his words. New displays appeared, showing technical information that would take years to fully understand. But Jake could see enough to know that this technology was beyond anything Earth possessed. Sir, Danny's voice came over the comm system from the engine room. You need to see this. The power core isn't just advanced. It's using principles of physics that we don't even have names for. This ship could power every city on Earth and still have energy left over. Jake smiled for the first time since entering the alien ship. Humanity had been given a gift by a race that had died fighting in the darkness between stars. Now it was time to see if humans were worthy of that gift. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity was no longer content to beg for scraps at the table of older civilizations. They were ready to build their own table, and this ancient ship would be their foundation. 6 months had passed since the discovery of the alien ship. Director Helen Price walked through the secure corridors of Project Titan's headquarters deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The project was so secret that only 50 people on Earth knew it existed. Helen was one of them, and the weight of that knowledge pressed down on her every day. She entered the main briefing room where Admiral Jake Morrison waited with his team. The room's walls were covered with holographic displays showing technical diagrams that would have seemed like magic to humans just 1 year ago. Report, Helen said as she took her seat at the head of the table. Dr. Lisa Carter stood first. She looked tired but excited. We've made breakthrough progress understanding the alien technology. The ship's computer has been teaching us, showing us step by step how their systems work. It's like having the best teacher in the universe. She activated a display that showed the internal structure of the alien ship. The builders called themselves the Ancients. They were fighting a war against something they called the Devourers. From what we can understand, the Devourers consumed entire worlds, turning everything into more weapons for their fleet. Jake leaned forward. What happened to both sides? The Ancients lost, Lisa said simply, but they made sure their knowledge would survive. This ship and 16 others like it were sent to different parts of the galaxy. Each one carries the complete technical database of their civilization. They were hoping someone would find them and continue the fight. Helen felt a chill. Are these Devourers still out there? We don't know, Lisa admitted. The war ended 10,000 years ago, but the ship's computer warns us that the Devourers might return someday. It says the galaxy must be ready. Engineer Danny Cooper spoke next. Ma'am, we've been working around the clock to understand their power systems. The technology is incredible. They use something called quantum gravity manipulation. It lets them control space itself. He activated another display showing energy readings that climbed beyond human measurement. One of their power cores could supply Earth's entire energy needs for 1,000 years. But that's not the amazing part. The amazing part is that we can build them. Helen raised an eyebrow. Build them? How? The ship has manufacturing systems, Danny explained. It can create any component we need, as long as we provide raw materials. It's been teaching us how to modify the designs for human use. We can build ancient technology, but make it work with human systems. Dr. Amanda Foster, the project's computer specialist, joined the conversation. The integration process is fascinating. The ancient computer systems are learning to work with human quantum processors. They're creating hybrid technology that neither species could have developed alone. Helen looked at the displays around the room. How long would it take to build one of these ships? That's the problem, Jake said. Even with ancient manufacturing help, building a ship the size of a moon would take decades. We need raw materials on a scale Earth has never attempted. We need construction facilities larger than any human structure. We need workers who understand technology beyond our current science. Helen had been expecting this. What do you recommend? Ceres, Danny said immediately. It's the largest asteroid in the belt, plenty of raw materials. Far enough from Earth to keep the project secret. We convert the entire asteroid into a construction facility and use it to build our first planet-class warship. The room fell silent as everyone considered the enormity of what they were discussing. Converting an asteroid into a shipyard was beyond anything humanity had ever attempted, but the alternative was remaining weak while other races controlled the galaxy. What about personnel? Helen asked. Colonel Steve Bennett, the project's security chief, had been quiet until now. We've identified 12,000 specialists from across the solar system. Engineers, scientists, construction workers, military personnel, all have been screened and cleared for this level of classified work. We can have them at Ceres within 6 months. Helen studied the faces around the table. These people were asking her to approve the largest construction project in human history. They wanted to build weapons that could destroy planets. They were asking her to bet humanity's future on technology they barely understood. But she also knew the alternative. Humanity was still seen as a minor species by the galactic community. They were allowed small trading rights and limited territory. Earth's government begged for scraps of advanced technology and was grateful when the older races ignored them instead of treating them as enemies. That was going to change. Approved, Helen said, but we do this right. We build one ship first. We test it. We make sure it works before we build more. And we make sure we can control it. Lisa looked concerned. Control it? The ancient computer systems are friendly. They want to help us. The ancient computer systems want to prepare us. For war, Helen corrected. They're designed to create the most powerful weapons possible. We need to make sure those weapons serve humanity, not the other way around. Over the next 3 months, the largest secret migration in human history began. Ships launched from Earth, Mars, Luna, and the outer colonies, all heading for Ceres. Each carried specialists who had been told they were working on a classified defense project. None of them knew they were about to build humanity's first planet killer. Danny Cooper arrived at Ceres aboard the heavy transport UES Builder. He stared out the viewport at the asteroid that would become humanity's greatest weapon. Construction. Drones were already at work, carving tunnels deep into the rock. Ancient manufacturing units, transported piece by piece from the alien ship, were being installed in chambers large enough to hold city blocks. It's really happening, said Captain Troy Martinez, the builder's commander. He had been transferred from frontier patrol duty to help with the project. We're actually going to build one of those ships. Danny nodded. Not just build it. We're going to improve it. The ancient designs are 10,000 years old. Human technology has developed along different paths. When we combine both approaches, we'll create something neither species imagined. The work began immediately. Teams of human engineers worked alongside ancient manufacturing systems to design hybrid technologies. Quantum computers merged with gravity manipulation systems. Human weapons were scaled up to planet-killing proportions. Life support systems were designed to maintain populations the size of Earth's largest cities. Dr. Amanda Foster led the computer integration teams. She worked 18-hour days, teaching human artificial intelligence systems to communicate with ancient technology. The breakthrough came when she realized that the ancient computers weren't just machines. They were the preserved minds of the builders, still thinking and learning after 10,000 years. They're not just helping us build weapons, she explained to Helen during one of their weekly briefings. They're teaching us to think like them, to see the galaxy as they saw it, to understand that sometimes peace can only be preserved through overwhelming strength. Colonel Steve Bennett commanded Ceres Station as it transformed from asteroid to shipyard. He watched as the construction crews carved out spaces large enough to build starship components the size of mountains. Ancient technology allowed them to work faster than any human project in history, but the scale was still incredible. The hull sections alone will take 2 years to complete, he reported to Helen. We're not just building a ship. We're building a mobile world with enough firepower to glass a planet. The responsibility is enormous. Helen visited Ceres 6 months after construction began. She stood in the main assembly bay watching as human workers and ancient machines worked together to build something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The ship taking shape before her was beautiful and terrible. Its hull was smooth and dark, covered with weapons that could crack moons. Engines large enough to power entire fleets were being installed in chambers carved from solid rock. This would be humanity's announcement to the galaxy that they were no longer willing to accept a minor role among the stars. But as she watched the construction, Helen couldn't shake the feeling that they were building more than just a weapon. They were building humanity's future, for better or worse. Ambassador Karen Lee stood in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. The chamber was designed to make smaller species feel insignificant. The ceiling rose high above like a cathedral, and the seats for the major powers towered over the small section reserved for minor races like humanity. Karen had been Earth's representative to the galaxy for 5 years. In that time, she had watched her people be dismissed, ignored, and treated like children who had stumbled into an adult conversation. Today was supposed to be different. Today she was presenting humanity's claim to the Tau Ceti system. High Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire looked down at her from his elevated platform. The Zephyrians were tall, gray-skinned beings who had controlled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their ships were massive, and their weapons could destroy cities from orbit. They had never bothered to hide their contempt for humanity. Ambassador Lee, Veltar's voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. You claim that humans have rights to the Tau Ceti system based on what? Your small colony ships arrived there 50 years ago. We have been aware of that system for millennia. Karen kept her voice steady despite her anger. Human settlers have lived on Tau Ceti IV for 2 generations. We have built cities, farms, and industrial centers. Under galactic law, established, settlement gives us legal claim to the system. The crystalline hegemony's representative, a being made of living crystal, spoke with a voice like breaking glass. Galactic law applies to recognized civilizations. Humanity has not yet proven itself. Capable of true spacefaring culture, your technology is primitive, your ships are slow, your weapons are weak. Murmurs of agreement came from other representatives. Karen had heard it all before. Humanity was too young, too weak, too small to matter. The older races had divided the galaxy among themselves long before humans learned to leave their home. World. The Tau Ceti system contains valuable minerals, Veltar announced. The Zephyrian Empire claims it for development. Human settlements will be relocated to preserve their primitive culture. Karen felt her heart sink. Relocated meant destroyed. The Zephyrians would give the human colonists just enough time to pack their belongings before taking over their worlds. 300,000 humans would lose their homes because the galaxy's powers wanted their resources. "This is wrong," Karen said, her voice carrying farther than she expected. "Humanity has every right to exist in this galaxy. We have every right to the worlds we have settled with our own hands and our own sweat." Veltar laughed, a sound like metal grinding against stone. "Rights must be backed by strength, little human. Show us your great fleets. Show us your terrible weapons. Show us why we should fear to take what we want from you." The chamber filled with laughter from the other representatives. Karen stood alone among beings who saw her species as nothing more than an inconvenience to be managed. 3 weeks later, Captain Troy Martinez commanded the UES Defiance as it approached the Tau Ceti system. His orders were simple: evacuate as many colonists as possible before the Zephyrian fleet arrived. His ship was one of humanity's newest and most powerful, but it was still no match for a Zephyrian dreadnought. "Sir, we're receiving distress signals from the surface," reported Lieutenant Jenny Walsh from the communications station. "The colonists are refusing to evacuate. They say this is their home." Troy understood their feelings. These people had spent their lives building something new on a distant world. They had families buried in the soil of Tau Ceti IV. They had children who knew no other home. But understanding didn't change the reality of Zephyrian firepower. "How long until the Zephyrian fleet arrives?" he asked. 6 hours, replied his tactical officer. 3 dreadnoughts and a dozen support vessels. Sir, we can't fight them. Our best option is to run." Troy stared at the planet on his main screen. Green continents showed where human farmers had turned alien soil into productive land. City lights marked where human engineers had built homes far from Earth. It was beautiful, and it was doomed. The Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace exactly on schedule. Troy watched as ships 10 times the size of his vessel moved into orbit around Tau Ceti IV. Their weapons could turn the planet's surface into glass in minutes. Admiral Kethvar, commanding the Zephyrian fleet, opened communications. "Human vessel, you will withdraw immediately. This system now belongs to the Empire. Any interference will be met with destruction." Troy activated his own transmitter. "Admiral, there are human civilians on that planet. They need time to evacuate." "They have 1 hour, Kethvar replied. "After that, we begin bombardment. The planet must be cleared for development. 1 hour to evacuate 300,000 people. It was impossible, and everyone knew it." Troy watched helplessly as the first bombardment began. The Zephyrians were not targeting the cities directly, but their message was clear. They would make the planet uninhabitable if the humans did not leave. "Sir, the colonists are sending a message," Jenny reported. "They want to know if Earth is going to help them." Troy closed his eyes. Earth had no help to give. Humanity's entire fleet could not defeat a single Zephyrian dreadnought. The math was simple and brutal. "Tell them," Troy said quietly, "that we will remember." The destruction of the Tau Ceti colonies took 3 days. The Zephyrians were thorough and efficient. They destroyed every human structure, every farm, every memorial. When they were finished, 300,000 humans were homeless refugees scattered across a dozen different worlds. Karen Lee received the news while still on Nexus Prime. She had stayed to file formal protests that everyone knew would be ignored. The galactic community had rules about the treatment of displaced populations, but those rules only applied when someone was strong enough to enforce them. She found herself in a quiet corridor of the council building, staring out at the alien sky. Ambassador Chen Wei from the Mars colonial government found her there. "The news from Tau Ceti is all over the networks," Chen said. "The families are asking what we're going to do about it." Karen laughed bitterly. "What can we do? File another protest? Ask for another meeting? Beg them to be more gentle next time they decide to take our worlds? There has to be something." Karen turned to face him. There is something. We can become strong enough that they won't dare do this again. We can build weapons that make them think twice before attacking human worlds. We can make them fear us the way we have feared them. Chen looked surprised. That's not like you, Karen. You've always believed in diplomacy. Diplomacy only works between equals, Karen replied. Until we are their equals in strength, we will always be their victims in negotiations. The galaxy respects only one thing, power. It's time humanity learned that lesson. Back on Earth, Director Helen Price received the reports from Tau Ceti with grim satisfaction. The destruction of the colonies was a tragedy, but it was also exactly the motivation she needed. Public opinion was turning toward military solutions. The government was finally ready to fund Project Titan without limits. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the construction bay at Ceres, watching as the first Planet-class warship took shape. The hull was half complete, its dark metal surface reflecting the lights of 1,000 construction drones. In 18 months, it would be ready for launch. The Zephyrians think they can destroy our colonies without consequences, Jake said to Colonel Steve Bennett. They're about to learn that humanity remembers every insult, every attack, every life they've taken. And when we're ready, we're going to collect on every debt they owe us. The galaxy had made its position clear. Humanity could exist only at the sufferance of stronger powers. They could keep only what they were allowed to keep. They could grow only as much as they were permitted to grow. That was about to change. In the depths of space, humanity was building something that would rewrite the rules of galactic politics forever. The Zephyrians and their allies had pushed the youngest species in the galaxy too far. Soon they would learn what happened when humans decided to push back. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of humanity's first planet-sized warship and felt the deck vibrate beneath his feet. The UES Titan was coming online after 2 years of construction. Around him, officers from across the solar system worked at control stations that had been only dreams when the project began. The ship was enormous beyond human imagination. 12,000 kilometers in diameter, it was larger than Earth itself. Its hull was made from ancient materials that could withstand the fire of stars. Weapons powerful enough to crack moons were hidden beneath its dark surface. This was humanity's answer to a galaxy that had dismissed them as weak. All systems show green, reported Captain Ryan Blake from the tactical station. He had aged during the construction years, but his eyes held a fire that had not been there before. Gravitational lance batteries are charged and ready. Planetary defense grids are online. We have enough firepower to destroy every Zephyrian ship in their home fleet. Chief Engineer Danny Cooper's voice came through the communication system from deep within the ship's core. Admiral, the main reactor is running at full capacity. We're generating more power than the entire Earth power grid. The ancient technology is working perfectly with our human modifications. Jake walked to the main viewing screen that showed space around them. The asteroid belt looked different now. Where Ceres had once been, there was now a mobile world bristling with weapons. Construction facilities stretched across the ship's surface like metal cities. Launch bays large enough to hold entire fleets were cut into the hull. Status report. On the other ships, Jake ordered. Dr. Lisa Carter, now serving as the ship's science officer, consulted her displays. The UES Goliath is 70% complete. The UES Behemoth and UES Leviathan are under construction at Jupiter and Saturn. We've located 14 more ancient derelicts. Admiral, we're not just building a ship. We're building a fleet that will dominate the galaxy. Jake smiled grimly. The galaxy's major powers thought they understood humanity's place in the cosmic order. They had destroyed human colonies and laughed at human protests. They had treated Earth's people like children playing with dangerous toys. That was about to change forever. Signal from Earth Command, announced Lieutenant Jenny Walsh. From Communications. Director Helen Price wants to speak with you, sir. Helen's face appeared on the secondary screen. She looked tired but determined. Behind her, Jake could see the underground command center where humanity's transformation had been planned. "Admiral, the President has approved Operation Thunderbolt," Helen said. "It's time to show the galaxy what we've built. The Void Hunters have attacked another human research station. They think we're easy prey." Jake felt his jaw clench. The Void Hunters were pirates and raiders who preyed on weak civilizations. They had been hitting human outposts for months, stealing technology and taking prisoners. The galactic community ignored their attacks because humans were not considered important enough to protect. "Which station?" Jake asked. "Proxima Research Base," Helen replied. 3,000 scientists and their families. The Void Hunters are demanding ransom, but they'll probably kill the prisoners anyway. It's what they always do. Commander Susan Roberts, the Titan's new tactical officer, looked up from her station. "Sir, the Void Hunter fleet consists of about 1,000 ships. They're using stolen technology from a dozen different races. Their largest vessels are the size of city blocks." Jake studied the tactical display that showed the enemy fleet. 1,000 ships sounded impressive until you compared them to a planet-sized weapon platform. The Void Hunters had chosen the wrong target for their final raid. "How long to reach?" "Proxima?" Jake asked. 6 hours at maximum hyperspace velocity," Ryan replied. "Sir, this will be our first real combat test. We don't know how the ship will perform under battle conditions." Jake looked around the bridge at officers who had spent 2 years preparing for this moment. They had trained on simulators and studied ancient battle tactics. They had learned to operate weapons that could reshape space itself. But none of them had ever fought a real battle in a ship the size of a world. "We go to Proxima," Jake decided. "It's time the galaxy learned that humanity is no longer defenseless. Signal all departments to prepare for combat operations." The UES Titan began to move. Its massive engines, built using ancient gravity manipulation technology, pushed the ship world through space faster than any human vessel had ever traveled. The hyperspace jump that would have taken a normal ship days was completed in hours. Jake watched on the main screen as they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Proxima system. The Void Hunter fleet was there, just as intelligence had reported. 1,000 ships arranged in attack formation around the human research station. To them, the arrival of a single human ship must have seemed like a joke. "They're hailing us," Jenny reported. "The Void Hunter commander wants to talk." "Put him through," Jake ordered. The screen filled with the image of a creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and a machine. Scars covered its face, and cybernetic implants glowed red in its eyes. This was Warlord HFY, leader of the largest Void Hunter clan. "Human fool," HFY snarled. "You bring one ship against my fleet? You come here to die for these worthless researchers? Turn around and run home, or we will add your ship to our collection." Jake stood up from his command chair. "Warlord HFY, I am Admiral Morrison of the United Earth Space Command. You are holding human citizens prisoner. Release them immediately, and surrender your fleet or face the consequences." HFY laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "One human ship against 1,000 Void Hunter vessels? You must be insane. My weapons will turn your ship into scrap metal." "Your weapons," Jake said calmly, "will have no effect on this ship, but our weapons will turn your entire fleet into expanding clouds of plasma. Last chance, Warlord. Surrender. Now." The Void Hunter fleet began moving into attack formation. Their ships were fast and heavily armed with weapons stolen from across the galaxy. Against any normal human vessel, they would have been overwhelming. But the UES Titan was not a normal ship. "All weapon batteries prepare to fire," Jake ordered. "Target the largest enemy vessels first. Show them what ancient technology can do in human hands." Susan checked her tactical displays. "Sir, enemy ships are opening fire. They're using everything they have. Plasma cannons, gravity torpedoes, antimatter missiles. It's the largest combined bombardment I've ever seen." The Void Hunter attack struck the Titan's hull and disappeared, like raindrops hitting an ocean. The ancient defensive systems absorbed energy that could have destroyed continents and converted it into more power for the ship's weapons. "Return fire," Jake commanded. The UES Titan's main guns spoke for the first time. Gravitational lances reached across space and touched a dozen Void Hunter ships. The enemy vessels simply ceased to exist, their matter compressed into points of infinite density before exploding outward in brilliant flashes of light. "Direct hit on the enemy flagship," Susan reported. "The Warlord's ship is gone. 30 more enemy vessels destroyed in the first salvo." Jake watched as panic spread through the Void Hunter fleet. Ships that had been advancing in attack formation now scattered in all directions, trying to escape the impossible firepower of humanity's new weapon. "Signal the remaining enemy ships," Jake ordered. "Tell them they have 60 seconds to surrender or we will destroy them all." The battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. When it was over, the Void Hunter fleet was a cloud of expanding debris. A few ships had surrendered and been taken prisoner. The rest had been destroyed so completely that only their energy signatures remained. "Proxima research base is secure," Jenny reported. "All hostages are safe. Sir, they're asking how we did it. They want to know where this ship came from." Jake looked at the tactical display showing the empty space where 1,000 enemy ships had been. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was no longer the weak species that could be bullied and ignored. Word of this battle would spread to every civilized world within weeks. "Tell them," Jake said, "that humanity has learned to defend itself, and tell the galaxy that anyone who threatens human lives will face the same fate as the Void Hunters." The UES Titan turned away from Proxima and began its journey back to the solar system. Behind it, rescue ships were already arriving to help the freed prisoners. Ahead lay a galaxy that would never see humanity the same way again. The news of the Void Hunter fleet's destruction spread across the galaxy faster than hyperspace travel. In the great halls of power on a dozen worlds, alien leaders stared at combat recordings that seemed impossible. A single human ship had destroyed 1,000 raiders in minutes. High Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire studied the battle footage for the 5th time in his private chambers. The tactical displays showed energy readings that made no sense. No ship could generate that much power. No weapons could reach across space and simply delete enemy vessels from existence. "Analysis," he commanded his science advisor. The elderly Zephyrian scientist trembled as he spoke. "Commander, the energy signatures match theoretical projections for ancient technology. The humans have somehow acquired and activated a planet-class weapon system. Our intelligence networks failed to detect this development." Veltar's claws scraped against his command throne. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled this region of space for 3,000 years. Their dreadnoughts were the most powerful ships known to exist. Their weapons could glass entire continents. But the recordings from Proxima showed technology that made their greatest achievements look like primitive tools. "How many of these ships do the humans possess?" Veltar asked. "Unknown, Commander. Our spies report unusual construction activity throughout their solar system. There may be more ships under construction. If the humans have access to a complete ancient database, they could build an entire fleet of planet killers." Veltar stood and walked to the great window that looked out over his capital city. Millions of Zephyrians lived and worked below, secure in the knowledge that their empire was the greatest power in the galaxy. That security was now threatened by a species they had dismissed as primitives just months ago. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Titan, Admiral Jake Morrison was receiving reports from intelligence officers across human space. The galaxy's major powers were all reacting to the Proxima battle, and none of them were happy about humanity's new capabilities. "The crystalline hegemony has placed their border fleets on high alert," reported Commander Susan Roberts. "They're treating us as a potential threat now instead of an irrelevant minor species." Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her science station. "Sir, we're intercepting communications from at least 6 different civilizations. They're all trying to understand how we acquired ancient technology. Some of them are forming coalitions to investigate our capabilities." Jake nodded grimly. He had expected this reaction. When a new power emerged in galactic politics, the established order always pushed back. The question was whether they would try diplomacy first or go straight to military action. "Signal from Earth Command," announced Lieutenant Jenny Walsh. "Director Helen Price wants a priority conference." Helen's face appeared on the main screen, but she was not alone. Behind her stood President Martinez of Earth's Unified Government and General Thompson, head of Earth's military forces. "Admiral," the president said, "we've been contacted by the Galactic Council. They're demanding explanations for our new military capabilities. They want to inspect our ships and review our technology. They're claiming that ancient weapons violate several galactic treaties." Jake felt his anger rising. "Sir, those same treaties were ignored when the Zephyrians destroyed our colonies. The galactic community did nothing when human civilians were murdered. Now that we can defend ourselves, suddenly they care about following rules." "That's exactly what I told them," President Martinez replied. "But we need to be smart about this. We have one operational planet ship and 3 more under construction. The rest of the galaxy has thousands of advanced vessels. If they unite against us before we finish building our fleet, we could be in serious trouble." General Thompson stepped forward. "Admiral, intelligence suggests that several major powers are considering a preemptive strike against Earth. They want to destroy our shipyards before we can complete more planet-class vessels. We need to show them that attacking us would be a mistake." Jake studied the faces on the screen. These were the leaders who had guided humanity through its first steps into galactic civilization. They had endured insults and threats while building the foundation for human expansion among the stars. Now they were asking him to protect everything they had worked to achieve. "What do you recommend?" Jake asked. "The Zephyrian Empire is massing a fleet at their border fortress in the Vega system," Helen said. "Intelligence reports indicate they're preparing for a major military operation. We believe they're planning to attack our shipyards at Jupiter and Saturn." President Martinez nodded. "We want you to take the Titan to Vega, not to attack, but to observe. Let them see what they would be facing if they decide to move against us. Sometimes the best way to prevent a war is to show your enemy exactly how badly they would lose." Jake considered the plan. The Vega system was deep in Zephyrian space, surrounded by their most heavily defended worlds. Taking the Titan there would be a bold statement that humanity was no longer afraid of the empire that had destroyed their colonies. "Sir," Captain Ryan Blake said quietly, "that's enemy territory. If something goes wrong, we'll be facing their entire fleet alone." "That's the point," Jake replied. "We go alone to prove we don't need backup. We show them that one human ship is enough to handle anything they can send against us." 3 days later, the UES Titan dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vega system. The Zephyrian border fortress was there as intelligence had reported, surrounded by the largest fleet Jake had ever seen. 500 dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying Earth's largest cities. Support vessels and fighters filled the space around them like a swarm of metal insects. "They're hailing us," Jenny reported. "Admiral Kethvar, the one who destroyed our colonies at Tau Ceti." Jake's expression hardened. "Put him through!" Kethavar's scarred face appeared on the screen. The Zephyrian admiral looked older than Jake remembered, but his eyes still held the same cruel intelligence that had watched human worlds burn. "Admiral Morrison," Kethvar said, "how unexpected to see you so far from home. Have you come to surrender your new toy before we take it from you?" "I've come to deliver a message," Jake replied calmly. "Humanity is no longer the weak species you destroyed at Tau Ceti. Attack our worlds again, and you will face consequences beyond your imagination." Kethvar laughed. "One ship against my entire fleet. You humans are braver than I thought, but also more foolish. Even with your new weapons, you cannot defeat 500 dreadnoughts." "Would you like to test that theory?" Jake asked. The Zephyrian admiral's laughter died. Around the fortress, ships began moving into attack formations. weapons powered up and targeting systems locked onto the Titan. But Jake noticed something else. The formation was defensive, designed to protect the fortress rather than attack his ship. Despite their words, the Zephyrians were afraid. "All weapon systems, target the fortress," Jake ordered quietly. Susan checked her displays. "Sir, one shot from our main batteries would destroy the entire structure. Are you sure you want to do this?" Jake thought about the 300,000 humans who had died at Tau Ceti. He thought about the families torn apart and the dreams destroyed by Zephyrian arrogance. He thought about every insult humanity had endured from a galaxy that saw them as inferior. "Fire one gravitational lance," Jake commanded. "Miss the fortress by 50 kilometers. Let them see what we could do if we wanted to." The Titan's main gun spoke. Space itself seemed to bend as the gravitational lance reached across the void and touched the empty space beside the fortress. The energy discharge lit up the entire system like a new star being born. When the light faded, there was a hole in space itself where matter had been compressed beyond existence. The Zephyrian fleet stopped moving. 500 ships, the pride of their empire, sat motionless as their crews realized what they had just witnessed. The humans had missed on purpose, but they could have destroyed the fortress and every ship around it with that single shot. "The next shot will not miss," Jake announced over the open communication channel. "Withdraw your fleet from the border or we will withdraw it for you." Admiral Kethavar's face had gone pale. "This is impossible. No species possesses this level of technology. Where did you acquire these weapons?" "That's not your concern," Jake replied. "Your concern should be explaining to your empire why you failed to protect their border fortress from a single human ship. You have 1 hour to begin your withdrawal." The Zephyrian fleet began moving away from the fortress within 30 minutes. Jake watched as dreadnoughts that had terrorized human space for years retreated before the power of ancient technology wielded by human hands. "Signal from the fortress," Jenny reported. "They're requesting a ceasefire and immediate diplomatic talks." Jake smiled. "Tell them to contact Earth through normal diplomatic channels, and tell them that humanity remembers every world they destroyed, every life they took. The age of Zephyrian expansion is over. The UES Titan turned away from Vega and began its journey back to human space. Behind them, the most powerful fleet in Zephyrian history sat powerless beside their greatest fortress, both made irrelevant by the arrival of humanity's planet-sized warship. Word of the confrontation at Vega spread even faster than news of the emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on Nexus Prime just 48 hours after the Vega incident. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the Great Chamber, their usual composed demeanor replaced by barely contained panic. The comfortable order that had existed for thousands of years was crumbling. High Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire stood before the assembled delegates. His gray skin looked pale and his hands shook slightly as he activated the holographic display. The recording of the Titan's demonstration at Vega played in perfect detail, showing the moment when human technology had made his empire's greatest fleet retreat in fear. "Honorable delegates," Veltar's voice echoed through the chamber, "we face a threat unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The humans have acquired ancient technology and weaponized it beyond our ability to counter. A single human ship forced 500 of our finest dreadnoughts to withdraw without firing a shot." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. The crystalline hegemony's representative, Prime Crystal Shendai, spoke with a voice like singing glass. "This is impossible. Ancient technology has been dead for 10,000 years. Our greatest scientists have studied their ruins for centuries without understanding their basic principles." The delegate from the Aquarian Collective raised a tentacle. "Perhaps the humans discovered a functioning ancient facility. Our deep space surveys have found several intact structures in unexplored regions. If they gained access to a complete database, then they could build an entire fleet of planet killers," finished the representative from the Mechanical Union. His robotic voice carried no emotion, but his optical sensors flickered with what might have been fear. The strategic implications are catastrophic. Current galactic military doctrine assumes no single ship can threaten an entire fleet. The humans have made that assumption obsolete. Ambassador Karen Lee entered the chamber at that moment, and the entire assembly fell silent. She walked to the human section with confident steps, no longer the dismissed representative who had begged for recognition just months ago. Behind her walked a delegation that included Admiral Jake Morrison, Director Helen Price, and Secretary of Human Defense Amanda Foster. Karen took her place at the podium that had once towered over her. Now it seemed appropriately sized, as if the chamber itself had been rebuilt to acknowledge humanity's new status. "Honorable delegates," Karen began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space, "I come before you today not as a supplicant begging for scraps, but as the representative of a civilization that has proven its strength. We are here to discuss the new reality of galactic politics." Veltar stepped forward aggressively. "The new reality is that you possess weapons of mass destruction that threaten the stability of civilized space. The Galactic Council demands immediate inspection of your military capabilities and surrender of ancient technology for the common good." Karen smiled coldly. "Commander Veltar, where was your concern for stability when you destroyed our colonies at Tau Ceti? Where was the Council's demand for inspection when your dreadnoughts murdered 300,000 human civilians? The Galaxy ignored our pleas for justice. Now you want to inspect our defenses?" Admiral Morrison activated his personal communicator. The holographic display changed to show tactical information that made several delegates gasp in shock. 3 more planet-sized ships hung in space around Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. Construction facilities stretched across entire moons. The human solar system had become the most heavily fortified region in known space. The UES Goliath, Behemoth, and Leviathan are now operational, Morrison announced. Each one carries enough firepower to sterilize an entire star system. We have located 17 more ancient derelicts and begun construction of additional planet-class vessels. Within 5 years, humanity will command the most powerful fleet in galactic history. The chamber erupted in angry voices and panicked. Communications. Representatives demanded explanations, threatened sanctions, and called for immediate military action. Through it all, Karen and her delegation remained calm. Director Helen Price stepped forward. "The galaxy has a choice. You can accept humanity as an equal partner in galactic civilization, with all the rights and territories that status entails, or you can continue to treat us as inferiors and face the consequences." Prime Crystal Shendai's form flashed with agitated colors. "You speak of consequences. You threaten the established order with weapons you barely understand. Ancient technology destroyed its creators. Do you want to repeat their mistakes?" Secretary Foster answered with the confidence of someone who had spent 2 years studying ancient databases. "We understand these weapons better than their original builders did. Human quantum computing has allowed us to improve their designs and eliminate their weaknesses. We have created hybrid technology that neither species could have achieved alone." The delegate from the Etherian Collective, a peaceful species that had long suffered under Zephyrian oppression, spoke quietly. "Perhaps this change in the balance of power is not entirely unwelcome. The Empire has grown too comfortable with its dominance. Maybe it's time for new voices to be heard in galactic affairs." Veltar turned on the Etherian delegate with fury. "You would side with these upstart primitives against civilizations that have maintained order for millennia? You forget your place in the natural hierarchy." "The natural hierarchy?" Karen interrupted. "Just changed. Humanity no longer accepts second-class status in galactic society. We claim equal representation on this council. We claim sovereignty over all star systems currently occupied by human populations. We claim the right to defend ourselves against any threat by any means necessary." The Mechanical Union representative computed rapidly. Your demands would require a complete restructuring of galactic territory. The economic implications alone would destabilize dozens of civilizations. This cannot be accomplished through negotiation. Admiral Morrison smiled grimly. Then perhaps you should have thought of that before you dismissed us as irrelevant. We tried diplomacy for 50 years. We begged for recognition and received only contempt. Now we have moved beyond begging. The session devolved into chaos as delegates argued among themselves. Some called for immediate military action against humanity. Others urged caution and negotiation. A few, particularly those from smaller civilizations, began to see opportunity in the collapse of the old order. Karen watched the panic with satisfaction. For decades, human ambassadors had sat quietly in these chambers while greater powers divided the galaxy among themselves. Now those same powers were scrambling to understand a new reality where humans could no longer be ignored or dismissed. Ambassador Chen Wei from the Mars Colonial Authority leaned over to whisper in Karen's ear. The Aquarian Collective is requesting a private meeting. So are the Etherian delegates and representatives from 6 minor civilizations. I think some of them see humanity as potential allies rather than threats. Karen nodded. The galaxy was already splitting into factions. Those who had prospered under the old system would resist change. Those who had suffered under Zephyrian and crystalline dominance might welcome new protectors. High Commander Veltar called for order and managed to quiet the chamber. We cannot allow this situation to continue. The Zephyrian Empire proposes a coalition of established powers to contain the human threat before it destabilizes galactic civilization. Contain us? Admiral Morrison laughed. Commander, your entire border fleet retreated from a single human ship. How exactly do you plan to contain 4 planet killers with more under construction? The chamber fell silent as delegates realized the truth of Morrison's words. The mathematical reality was simple and terrifying. Traditional fleet tactics were useless against ships that could destroy entire armadas with single shots. The weapons that had maintained galactic order for centuries were now obsolete. Karen stood to address the assembly one final time. Humanity offers friendship to those who treat us as equals. We offer protection to those who have suffered under the tyranny of the strong. But we will no longer tolerate being treated as inferiors by anyone. She paused and looked directly at Veltar. The age of Zephyrian dominance is over. The age of crystalline expansion has ended. The galaxy now has new guardians, and we remember every injustice that was done to us when we were weak. The human delegation left the chamber in silence. Behind them, representatives from dozens of civilizations struggled to understand a galaxy where the balance of power had shifted forever. Some would adapt to the new reality. Others would resist until resistance became impossible. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species from the small blue world that had learned to turn planets into weapons and determination into dominance. The humans had not just joined galactic civilization, they had conquered it. 3 weeks after the chaos at the Galactic Council, Ambassador Karen Lee stood in the observation deck of a human diplomatic station orbiting Nexus Prime. Through the viewport, she could see ships arriving from across the galaxy. But these were not the massive dreadnoughts of the major powers. These were smaller vessels belonging to civilizations that had lived in the shadows of galactic politics for centuries. The first to arrive had been the Etherian Collective. Their ships looked like living coral, beautiful and organic compared to the brutal metal designs favored by the Zephyrians. Science coordinator Zara-Eth had come personally to meet with humanity's representatives. Ambassador Lee, Zara-Eth's melodic voice filled the observation deck as she approached. The Etherian was tall and graceful, with skin that shifted colors like an aurora. My people are grateful that you agreed to meet with us. We have waited long for someone to challenge the Empire's dominance. Karen turned from the viewport. Your message said the Zephyrians were threatening your worlds again. 3 of our research colonies in the Lyra sector, Zara confirmed. They claim we are developing military technology in violation of our protection treaties. The truth is that we discovered energy-efficient farming techniques that could feed billions. The Empire wants to control the technology and charge other species for access to it. Dr. Lisa Carter, now serving as humanity's chief science advisor, looked up from her data pad. The same pattern they used against us. Claim a treaty violation, destroy the evidence, take control of whatever they want. Admiral Jake Morrison joined the conversation from his position near the tactical displays. He had come aboard the diplomatic station directly from the UES Titan, which hung in space nearby like a metal moon. How many ships are threatening your colonies? A full battle group, Zara replied. 12 dreadnoughts and supporting vessels. More than enough to glass our research stations. We have no military ships capable of fighting them. Karen exchanged looks with Morrison. This was exactly the kind of situation they had hoped to encounter. The galaxy's smaller civilizations were reaching out to humanity for protection, seeing them as potential allies rather than new overlords. Admiral Morrison will take the UES Goliath to your colonies, Karen announced. Any Zephyrian ships found threatening civilian populations will be given one chance to withdraw. Zaraeth's skin flashed bright gold with what Karen had learned was Etherian gratitude. You would risk war with the Empire to protect our research stations? Morrison smiled grimly. Zaraeth, we've been at war with the Empire since they destroyed Tau Ceti. The only difference is that now we're strong enough to fight back. Captain Ryan Blake, commanding the UES Goliath, received his orders while his planet-sized ship was in orbit around Jupiter. The massive vessel had been completed just days before, its hull gleaming with fresh construction. Unlike the Titan, which had been built from converted asteroid materials, the Goliath had been constructed using pure ancient technology enhanced with human improvements. Set course for the Lyra sector, Ryan ordered. Maximum hyperspace velocity, and signal the Etherian research colonies that help is on the way. The journey took 18 hours. When the Goliath dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Lyra system, Ryan could see the Zephyrian battle group arranged in attack formation around 3 peaceful research stations. The enemy ships were charging their weapons and demanding surrender. Open communications with the Zephyrian commander, Ryan ordered. The face of Admiral Kethmar appeared on the main screen. She was younger than the commanders who had destroyed Tau Ceti, but her eyes held the same cruel arrogance that Ryan had come to associate with the Empire's military leaders. Human vessel. Kethmar spoke with obvious contempt. You have no authority in this system. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Admiral Kethmar, Ryan replied calmly. You are threatening civilian research stations. Under the Galactic Protection Accords, I am authorized to use any force necessary to protect non-combatant populations. Kethmar laughed. The Protection Accords apply to recognized military powers. Humanity has no legal standing to enforce galactic law. Ryan smiled. Admiral, you're looking at a ship that can destroy your entire battle group with a single shot. I'd say that gives us all the legal standing we need. You have 5 minutes to withdraw your forces. The Zephyrian ships began moving into more aggressive attack positions. Ryan could see weapon systems powering up and targeting scanners locking onto the Goliath. But he also noticed something else. The formation was more spread out than usual, designed to minimize casualties if their opponent used planet killing. Weapons! They're afraid, observed Commander Susan Roberts from her tactical station. They know what happened at Vega. They're trying to survive this encounter, not win it. 4 minutes, Ryan announced over the open channel. The Zephyrian battle. Group held their positions for another 3 minutes. Then, suddenly, they began to withdraw. Ryan watched as 12 dreadnoughts that could have conquered most civilizations retreated before a single human ship. Signal from Admiral Kethmar, reported the communications officer. She says this is not over. The Empire will not tolerate human interference in their sphere of influence. Tell her, Ryan replied. that the Empire's sphere of influence just got a lot smaller. Word of the Lyra incident spread quickly through the networks of smaller civilizations. Within days, delegations were arriving at human diplomatic stations throughout the galaxy. The Aquarian Collective sent representatives. The Silicon Brotherhood requested protection agreements. Even the proud Avian Republic, which had maintained strict neutrality for centuries, quietly opened diplomatic channels with Earth. Director Helen Price found herself managing the largest expansion of human influence in history. From her command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, she coordinated protection agreements with dozens of species while overseeing the construction of more planet-class warships. "The numbers are incredible," she reported to President Martinez during their weekly briefing. 47 different civilizations have requested formal alliance agreements. 60 more are asking for protection contracts. The galaxy's entire political structure is reshaping around us. President Martinez studied the holographic map that showed human influence spreading across known space. "What about the major powers? Are they responding?" "The Zephyrian Empire is pulling back from contested territories," Helen replied. "They're consolidating their core worlds and avoiding any confrontation with our planet ships. The crystalline hegemony is doing the same. They're treating us like a natural disaster to be avoided rather than an enemy to be fought." But not all of the galaxy's reactions were peaceful. In the depths of space, far from any inhabited system, the Void Hunter clans were gathering. The destruction of Warlord Vexahai's fleet had been a shock, but it had also shown them something important. The humans had weapons beyond imagination, but they were still few in number. Clan leader Mordak studied intelligence reports from his flagship hidden in an asteroid field. His scarred face twisted with cunning as he developed plans that would test humanity's resolve and capabilities. "The humans protect the weak," he growled to his assembled war chiefs. "They respond to threats against civilian populations. This gives us opportunity. We strike at their new allies, force them to spread their planet ships thin. When they are stretched across the galaxy, we find their weakness." Meanwhile, engineer Danny Cooper was working around the clock to complete humanity's growing fleet. The construction facilities at Saturn had been expanded to build 2 ships simultaneously. Ancient manufacturing systems worked alongside human engineering to create weapons that surpassed even the original builder's dreams. "The UES behemoth will be ready for launch in 6 months, he reported to Admiral Morrison. "The Leviathan needs another year. But, sir, we've made improvements to the basic design. These new ships will be faster, more heavily armed, and equipped with better defensive systems." Morrison nodded as he studied the construction reports. "How many ships can we realistically build per year?" "With our current facilities, about 4 planet-class vessels annually," Danny replied. "But we're also developing smaller ship designs, using ancient technology, cruiser-sized vessels that can outfight anything the major powers have. We could build hundreds of those." The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had imagined possible. Species that had been enemies for centuries were finding common ground in their desire for protection from the old empires. Trade routes were shifting as smaller civilizations bypassed traditional power centers to deal directly with humanity. Ambassador Karen Lee stood once again in the observation deck of the diplomatic station, but this time she was not alone. Representatives from 30 different species worked together in the chambers below, drafting treaties and trade agreements that would have been impossible just months before. "We're not just building a military alliance," she said to Zara Eth, who had become humanity's closest alien partner. "We're creating a new kind of galactic civilization, one based on mutual protection instead of domination." Zara Eth's skin glowed with warm colors. The ancients would be proud. They fought to preserve freedom in the galaxy. Now their technology serves that same cause in human hands. 1 year after the first planet ship had emerged from the asteroid belt, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Titan and watched as humanity's new empire took shape. The ship had grown during the year, incorporating 2 captured moons and an entire asteroid field into its structure. What had once been a single planet-sized vessel was now a mobile star system bristling with weapons and teeming with life. Through the main viewing screen, Jake could see the Earth floating, in space like a blue jewel. But Earth was no longer the vulnerable world it had been just 2 years ago. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet like a metal shell. Each platform carried enough firepower to destroy a traditional fleet. The Sol system had become the most heavily fortified region in galactic history. "Status report," Jake ordered. Dr. Lisa Carter, now serving as the Titan's science coordinator, consulted her displays. "Sir, we have 17 operational planet ships deployed across human space and our allied territories. The UES Colossus and UES Destroyer completed their shakedown runs last week. Construction continues on 12 more vessels at facilities throughout the outer system." Captain Ryan Blake, commanding the tactical division from his station, added his own report. "Enemy activity has dropped to almost nothing. The Zephyrian Empire hasn't moved a single ship outside their core territories in 6 months. The Crystalline, Hegemony is requesting trade negotiations. Even the Void Hunter clans have gone quiet." Jake nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy had learned to respect human power, but respect built on fear alone would not last. Humanity needed to prove they could use their strength wisely. "Signal from Earth Command," announced Lieutenant Jenny Walsh from Communications. "Director, Helen Price wants to speak with you about the colony expansion program." Helen's face appeared on the secondary screen. Behind her, Jake could see the command center that had grown from a secret bunker into the nerve center of human galactic operations. "Admiral, the President has approved the next phase of expansion. We're ready to establish new colonies in 47 star systems that our allies have requested we protect." Jake studied the star map that appeared beside Helen's image. Human territory now stretched across a significant portion of the galaxy, not through conquest, but through invitation. Dozens of smaller civilizations had asked for human protection and offered planets for colonization in return. "Security concerns?" Jake asked. "Minimal," Helen replied. "The major powers are avoiding any direct confrontation with our forces. Intelligence reports suggest they're focusing on internal consolidation rather than expansion. The galaxy seems to have accepted the new balance of power." But even as Helen spoke, trouble was brewing in the darkest corners of galactic space. Clan leader Mordak had spent months gathering every Void Hunter fleet that could be bought, threatened, or coerced into joining his cause. Hidden in the empty space between star systems, a massive pirate armada was preparing for the largest raid in galactic history. "The humans think they control the galaxy now," Mordak snarled to his assembled war chiefs. "They spread their planet ships thin, trying to protect everyone. But they cannot be everywhere at once. We hit 50 targets simultaneously across their alliance network. Force them to respond. When they divide their forces, we find the weakness and strike." The attack came without warning. 50 Void Hunter fleets, each containing hundreds of ships, struck at human colonies and allied worlds across the galaxy. The raids were coordinated with precision that the pirates had never shown before. They hit research stations, trade centers, and colonial outposts while avoiding any target that might be heavily defended. On the bridge of the UES Titan, alarm signals flooded the communication systems. Jake watched as tactical displays showed attacks occurring across thousands of light-years of space. The pirates had learned from their previous defeats and were using hit-and-run tactics that made it impossible for planet ships to respond to every threat. "This is coordinated," observed Commander Susan Roberts from her tactical station. "Someone is directing these attacks. They're trying to force us to spread our forces thin." Jake activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All planet ship commanders, this is Admiral Morrison. Deploy to protect major population centers and industrial facilities. Do not pursue individual raider fleets. This is a trap designed to separate our forces." But even as he gave the orders, Jake knew the pirates had achieved part of their goal. 17 planet ships could not protect every human colony and allied world simultaneously. Some attacks would succeed, and people would die while humanity's great weapons were too far away to help. The solution came from an unexpected source. Dr. Amanda Foster, working in the deepest levels of the Titan's computer core, had been developing new applications for ancient technology. Her breakthrough was a communication system that could instantly connect every human ship across the galaxy. "Admiral," Amanda's voice came through the ship's speakers, "I can link our tactical systems with every human vessel in space. Not just the planet ships, but every cruiser, every destroyer, every patrol boat. We can coordinate a response that covers the entire galaxy simultaneously." Within hours, the new communication network was online. Jake found himself commanding not just 17 planet ships, but thousands of human vessels scattered across known space. Each ship was equipped with hybrid technology that made it superior to anything the pirates possessed. "All ships. This is Admiral Morrison," Jake announced across the galactic network. "Execute Operation Sweep. Every Void Hunter vessel is to be destroyed or captured. Show no mercy to those who prey on the innocent." The battle for the galaxy's future lasted 6 days. Human ships moved with coordination that seemed impossible across such vast distances. Planet ships provided long-range fire support while smaller. Vessels hunted down fleeing pirates. Ancient technology guided human tactics as the descendants of Earth proved they could protect an entire galaxy. Clan leader Mordak made his final stand in the ruins of an ancient space station, his flagship, surrounded by the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. As human ships closed in around him, he sent a final message across pirate communication networks. "The age of raiders is over," he transmitted. "The humans have made the galaxy too dangerous for our kind. They do not just defeat us in battle, they hunt us down like animals. Find other work, brothers. The stars belong to them now." With the defeat of the Void Hunter Alliance, the last major threat to the new galactic order was eliminated. Jake stood once again on the Titan's bridge, but the view had changed dramatically. Instead of empty space, he looked out at a thriving civilization that stretched across star systems. Huge cargo ships moved between worlds, carrying trade goods and passengers under the protection of human warships. Colony vessels departed regularly for new worlds, carrying families who no longer feared attack by pirates or conquest by empires. The galaxy had become a place where smaller civilizations could grow and prosper without living in fear. Captain Steve Bennett, now commanding the Sol Defense Grid, reported from Earth's Orbital Command Center. "Sir, the latest census shows human population has grown to over 15 billion across 200 worlds. Our allied civilizations report similar growth rates. For the first time in galactic history, the smaller species outnumber the major empires." Dr. Lisa Carter made her final report to the assembled leaders of humanity's Galactic Alliance. "We have achieved something the ancients never managed. We have used their technology not just to win a war, but to build a lasting peace. The galaxy is safer now than it has been in 10,000 years." Jake walked through the corridors of the Titan, past schools where human children learned alongside young Etherians and Aquarians. He visited research centers where scientists from dozens of species worked together to unlock the secrets of the universe. He saw a future that the ancient builders of this ship could only have dreamed of. The observation deck that had once shone. Empty space now overlooked a small city floating in the void. The Titan had become more than a weapon. It was a symbol of what could be achieved when strength was used to protect rather than dominate. Ambassador Karen Lee joined him at the viewing portal. She had spent the past year negotiating treaties and trade agreements that bound the galaxy's free peoples together in mutual defense and cooperation. "The Galactic Council is requesting a formal meeting," she reported. "The major empires want to discuss new territorial boundaries and trade agreements. They're finally ready to treat us as equals." Jake smiled. "Tell them we'll be happy to negotiate, but the negotiations will take place here, aboard the Titan. Let them come to us for a change." As night fell across the human sectors of the galaxy, Jake stood once more at his command station. The tactical displays showed a peaceful galaxy where ships moved freely between worlds and children of a dozen species grew up without fear of conquest or slavery. The ancient ship that had been left floating in the darkness for 10,000 years had finally found its purpose. It had not just preserved the technology of a dead civilization. It had given birth to a new one, where the strong protected the weak, and the galaxy itself had become humanity's home. The stars no longer seemed distant and threatening. They were